And we're back with a second volume of canceled games that we wouldn't mind spending some more time with. Or, as you're about to find out, even really get to play at all. Yes, this is one volume that includes a bunch of big names that never really saw the light of day, or were just in some sort of short alpha or beta. You'll immediately recognize some names, curse at some developers, and in the end, realize that this is just how it goes. Some games are released and others are canceled. Sometimes out of the blue. And then there's this one game that everyone just knew wasn't gonna happen, right? EverQuest. So, EverQuest Next was cancelled. We wouldn't exactly say that this was surprising, but we still had hopes that Daybreak Games could actually see this one through. We lost most of our hope when they chopped H1Z1 into 2 games and ditched the free-to-play model that was associated to the game, and judging by the slow and frustrating development of Landmark, wasn't really looking too good. EverQuest Next was looking more and more like a game that Daybreak just didn't have the ability to pull off, especially considering all the wonderful promises of emergent AI, destructive environments, permanent change, and a sandbox world with real consequences. It's like they asked Peter Molyneux to come up with a press release filled with crazy things and only later paused to actually think about it. According to Daybreak, EverQuest Next was cancelled because they had to push the boundaries and create new technology in aspects such as voxel world technology, dynamic AI systems, and fully 3D modifiable gameplay spaces. There's progress all the time, but promising several features that aren't fully developed or properly tried and tested seem like a work of epic proportions or, most likely, a hallucination. With the new EverQuest chapter divided into 2 games, Landmark and EverQuest Next, Daybreak failed in most aspects, especially in respect to its players and probably damaging its reputation beyond repair. EverQuest Next cancelled. Landmark badly supported in early access for ages, and ultimately going from free-to-play to a $9.99 game. So much for the build stuff in Landmark to see the best player creations in EverQuest Next, right? How much can you push it before players say, enough? Fable Legends was the swan song of Lionhead Studios, a game that we were told would run successfully for 5 to 10 years. It didn't even get to open beta. Microsoft canceled it and closed Lionhead, makers of the Fable series, as well as Black and White. Truly depressing, especially considering that a few weeks earlier, Microsoft had expressed its full commitment to PC gaming. That's a great way to show it, guys. Anyways, 4 versus 1 games don't seem to be really lucky. With BioWare's Shadow Realms also canceled during development and Evolve being, well, out there, Fable Legends had some potential, but initial impressions weren't exactly mind-blowing. Nevertheless, there was plenty of time for improving, or so we thought. In the end, we're left with a bitter taste, not only due to this being the 3rd time that the Fable name was pointlessly tied to a game after the Journey and Heroes, but also it led to the closure of a studio that should be given enough time and resources to actually finish the project or work on a proper new Fable game. Rising Thunder was a 2D fighting game of ambition. Seth Killian, ex-Capcom, was leading development with Radiant Entertainment, and it was designed with esports in mind. After an interesting technical alpha showing a gameplay that required skill but wasn't overly complicated, it looked like the game was ready for the next stage of development, but suddenly, someone stepped in. That someone was Riot Games, makers of League of Legends, who decided to acquire Radiant Entertainment and, for some still unknown reason, cancel the development of Rising Thunder. No explanation was given, it's just what it is. The team went on to work on a new, to-be-announced game, which sounds particularly odd considering that Rising Thunder could turn out to be something valuable for Riot Games. So why scrap a game that already was at such an advanced stage of development? Vindictus, or Mabinogi Heroes in the original name, needs some actual competition, or better yet, a true successor. Asker the Light Swallowers was actually shaping up to be that game, It had some nice physics and environmental destruction to go with the fast-paced action combat. In fact, it was almost like a sequel, truly, to Vindictus in all but name. Obviously, it was going to launch with just 3 characters, but that's the standard in such games, with more to be added later. Developer NeoWiz, also responsible for Bless Embers in the Storm, could have a good game on its hands, but it seems that the initial reaction from Korean players wasn't the greatest, and the player base didn't get to the numbers the studio was actually expecting, so as such, the game was swiftly killed, without having a chance to truly become something special. In a segment where fast returns are becoming more and more the norm, some games seem to be doomed from the start. March has been a pretty crappy month for free-to-play and online games in general. Darkscape is just one more name for the pile and one more from Jagex, a studio that's becoming more popular for the games that it actually cancels than the ones released. After Transformers Universe, Stellar Dawn, and 8 Realms, now it's time for the PvP-focused Darkscape to say goodbye. An experiment, as the studio called it, while announcing the closure. Darkscape was another product derived of the eternal RuneScape. Although a small, hardcore community was still playing Darkscape, Jagex decided it just wasn't big enough to warrant ongoing development. And then, so long and thank you for all the fish. Well, there's still Chronicles RuneScape Legends. We just don't know for how long. Project On was Transformers on steroids, pretty much. That's saying something. NCSoft's third-person shooter with RPG mechanics looked really cool, with the power of the Unreal Engine 4 making this mech combat game truly shine in a genre where there really isn't that much competition. Some players still didn't get over the X-Steel shutdown, also from NCSoft, which was terminated in 2010. This is something of a spiritual sequel. If you don't know about this game and you're looking at the trailer right now, we wouldn't be surprised if your jaw just dropped to the floor. Project Han looked awesome, with some mechs that felt really weighty, and the action also switched from shooting to driving without any time to breathe. So what exactly went wrong with this game? NCSoft claims that it just wasn't suited to the current gaming market in South Korea, so the studio decided to focus on their other games, Lineage Eternal, Twilight Resistance, and the MOBA game Master X Master, which seems legitimate. But wait, there's actually more. 3 elements in the Project Han team were actually caught in an embezzlement scandal, pocketing thousands of dollars that should have been used in the development of the game. So yeah, this in no way could be related to the tragic fate of the game, right? Yeah, anyways, there's figureheads from Square Enix, but this game clearly doesn't pack the same punch as Project Han. Another import from the prolific South Korean market, Dizzel was an online shooter that was good enough to kill an hour or two now and then. One of the biggest problems with the Western release was the huge gap comparing the original Korean release, which entered closed beta in 2009. Dizzel looked dated, and while the gameplay still packed a little bit of a punch and featured some brutal executions admittedly, it just looked like a game that came from another era entirely. 4 months after the English release, Dizzel was cancelled, and the publisher OG Planet said that it was due to the closure of the development studio, NS Studio. To be honest, it was already too late for Dizzel, and this just confirmed it. Gunslinger Stratos Reloaded looked like a strong offering, being supported by an anime series and popular arcade games, but it didn't turn out that way. Square Enix decided to shut down the game in March 2015, less than a year after it entered open beta in Japan. With stylish characters in a Rise of Incarnates kind of way, and gameplay that was described as MOBA FPS, Gunslinger Stratos Reloaded was fast, had some verticality and lightning fast moves, but it just wasn't enough to keep it running. The servers were empty, and apparently some issues with the multiplayer code also prevented it from being a fluid experience. It's a shame too, because there aren't actually many games of the genre around. 2 examples are Cosmic League and the classic S4 League. Electronic Arts wasn't quite sure what to do with Command & Conquer as a free-to-play release. First it was Command & Conquer Generals 2. And later this turned into Command & Conquer Online, platform where players could actually access the entire franchise universe, starting with Generals and continuing with Red Alert, Tiberium, and beyond. This sounds ambitious, right? Well, so much so that it all actually went down the drain in October 2013. It looks like the feedback from the alpha was exactly contrary to what the studio Victory Games was working on, and so decision to cancel development was made. EA ultimately closed the development studio and hasn't tried another shot at this Command & Conquer online platform yet. Another free-to-play strategy game, End of Nations, also had a troubled development and ended up being cancelled. Sony Online brought this game to North America and Europe straight from Japan, and we're hoping for it to reach at least some recognition due to the fact that it was actually based on the classic Wizardry series by Sir Tech. Wizardry's online main draw was, oddly enough, the permadeath option. On the heels of Dark Souls' success, however, the game never managed to get much attention and simply didn't work in the US. Maybe it was the lack of decent player base for the PvP, the outdated presentation, or the excessively high cash-out prices in comparison to the Japanese version. Whatever it was, Wizardry Online failed to live up to the franchise's true potential. This concludes our second volume, and we're pretty sure you agree there were some at least promising games in here, and a few surprising twists that we don't hear all the time. Embezzlement? Really? Yeah, so much for an Exteel sequel. Anyways, we have good and bad news for you. The good news is that we'll surely have plenty of material for more volumes in this collection, and the bad news is actually the same thing. Enjoy gaming, guys, while they last, and until next time.